So this idea for this presentation has been on my mind, but the moment that really cemented that it was time to reach out to Sarah at the City Lights Foundation was during our Arctic emergency. And so the plight of people who were homeless certainly came to the forefront of all of our minds as we were cozy in our own houses, and our hearts were going out to people who didn't have that opportunity. And I saw a lot of discussion and even some argument on my social media about what the appropriate way to innovate and to assist people were. But what made me happy is that people were talking about the problem. And I told Sarah that I became aware of City Lights Foundation and their first event that they started sponsoring, Night Light Tulsa, very early on. And it was such a beautiful example of servant leadership, meeting people where they are. So it was a grassroots effort born out of a desire to build relationships and learn from those falling through gaps in services for people who were experiencing homelessness. The program grew and they formed their own nonprofit called City Lights Foundation of Oklahoma. And beyond the weekly service event that they started with, they've been able to meet the needs of individuals requiring shelter and have opened the door to a hotel that they've turned into temporary shelter for vulnerable people. So I think that's super smart and innovative, and part of the larger Housing First initiative that we learned about when we met Becky Gligo last fall, who now runs, what's the name of the organization? Help me out, Sarah.
Housing Solutions.
Housing Solutions, simple name, which I should stick, but that's another great resource in our community. So prior to City Lights, Sarah worked for 13 years as a neuro and trauma ICU nurse at St. Francis. So while her intent wasn't necessarily to start and run a nonprofit, through the beautiful accident of life, that's where she's ended up. And I, for one, am so grateful that she's doing that. So Sarah, I'm going to turn off my microphone. I'm going to turn it over to you. And if there are any questions, I will be monitoring them in the chat. And then when you're done with your presentation, you and I will have some conversation.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Sarah. You'll see that I'm actually at the hotel today. So this is my makeshift office since we've been over here. So there's beds turned up beside me and behind me and everything else. We like to joke around, and before the pandemic, we said we're the most flexible team out there, and the pandemic has definitely shown that that is true. So this is where I'm going to be sharing with you from today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have a little presentation, and then, like Wendy said, we'll do questions afterwards. So we're the City Lights Foundation of Oklahoma. Our theory of change, which we stick to through and through, is that we believe in the power of meaningful relationships to restore community. That's for us, that's for the people that we serve. We know that a lot of our friends that are homeless have had this loss of their safety net, this loss of this catastrophic loss of community. And so we know that through building those meaningful relationships, we're able to restore that community for them and move forward. And so that is our belief. A little bit about where we came from. We started Night Light Tulsa in 2013. It was myself and my co-founder, Anissa Jackson, and we were moms. She's a school teacher. I was a nurse. We really didn't have words around what we wanted to do fully at that time, but we really, really wanted to build community with people that did not have one, and a desire to just sit and learn. So this first picture here, that is one of our very first nights at Night Light. That was our first little line. I think we had 30 people there. And then before the pandemic hit, we were serving about 300 people every Thursday night and mobilizing people from all over Tulsa and other states, and probably having around, I think our last numbers were like 5,000 to 7,000 volunteers come through. And some of those are repeat, but we had a lot of different volunteers that were out working with us, and we're hoping that we'll be able to start Night Light back sometime mid-April as our homeless community is receiving vaccines now. So, so this is what we did. People ask where we got the word Nightlight. We modeled after an organization in Portland, Oregon called Night Strike, where they're under a bridge and serving their community. Light kind of plays on what our mission statement is, which is loving individuals, giving hope, touching souls through relational service and housing. And so if you take loving individuals, giving hope, touching souls, that spells out lights. And so that's what we want to be, as lights in our community. And so that's kind of where that came from. This was our first program, and as it grew, we were able to form our nonprofit, the City Lights Foundation of Oklahoma, and then we have an office in West Tulsa and serve that community over there as well. So we have an outdoor pantry that's kind of being redone right now, so it's not up, but we've had it up the entire pandemic and serving. People can drop food off and neighbors can come pick it up anytime, whether we're there or not. And so it just functions as an easy way for them to get access to food. We've done art and science camps. We've done neighborhood cookouts. We've had women's groups in our building. And so we're really, we've been really intentional with that River West community that we love so, so much. And then I'm just going to stop here real quick and just tell a little story because I feel like it fits into so much of like who we are as an organization. So when we started Night Light, one of the things that we wanted to do is to, this is going to sound so weird, but we wanted to wash feet for a couple of different reasons. One, my history is nursing. And so our friends are on their feet all day, every day, a lot of times in not appropriate shoes and the same socks. And so just for the healthiness of their feet that they're on all day, but also as a service to them. And there's just something that changes when you lower yourself in position to somebody else. And so they're sitting in a chair and we're sitting at their feet. And the first night I was in charge of that, and I had to really like go out and like advertise it because people, that's not something normal for people. So I said, does anybody want your feet washed? And everybody thought I was pretty much crazy. And so I finally went around this table with this, there were several friends sitting there, and this one guy said, well, I guess I will. And so I was as shocked as he was. And so I said, okay, I guess, okay. So he came over and he sat in my chair, and I was terrified. I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. And so I washed his feet, and I was just listening to him talk about life on the street, his street name, which we always use. That's a respectful thing for them when they offered their street name to us. We know that's a matter of trust. And so his name was Hurricane. He had relocated here after Hurricane Katrina, and had really lost everything there. And he had just really lived a rough life on the streets. And so he was telling me, and I was listening. And he said, you know, I can't believe you guys are out here. And things like that. And so when I got done, I was still sitting at his feet, and I kind of tapped him on the knee, and I just said, hey, thank you for spending time with me. And I made eye contact with him, and he diverted his eyes and he said, you're making me uncomfortable. And I felt so small and so like, what am I doing here? I have no idea. I should have listened to the tons of people who said girls can't do this and shouldn't do this and everything, you know, it just made me really question my role in that time. So I apologized, and he went on his way, and I thought about him all week. I thought about how I really had a lot to learn and really didn't know what I was doing. And like maybe this wasn't where I was supposed to be or what I was supposed to be doing. I just really questioned a lot and really just spent time like in that messy place where I was struggling to figure out exactly what I was supposed to gain from that experience. So the next week we came back. Nobody really volunteered to do foot washing back then. Now it's like a highly sought after position because of the relationships. But came back, had the station set up, was just kind of standing there, obviously letting people get food first and eat and get their other needs met. And I see Hurricane come from the corner of the bridge, and he walks over. And he stands directly in front of me, and he said, sit down, now it's your turn. And as he sat there and washed my feet, one of our co-founders happened to catch this picture. And I knew how uncomfortable that it was for him, but he'll never know how much that changed my life. And so just as, you know, we step into different things with our organization, we want to be people that say yes, even when we don't know the outcome. And we want to be people that are open to learning and recognizing that the people that we're serving are also serving us in a big way that sometimes we don't anticipate. Sorry. It just was a really special time, and I try to share that because I think that there's so much learning in this, and that is truly where our organization began, is in service to one another with the people that we care for so deeply. So I'm going to move on so that I don't get wrapped up in that, but I just loved it to share that as it's our beginning point. So Nightlight was up and functioning, and the pandemic hit, and we had to flex. So we had to change and figure out what we were going to do. So we really focused on making sure that our neighbors in West Tulsa had food that were housed, and then also making sure that our neighbors that were on the streets that were displaced because the shelters had to distance, everything changed for our friends. And especially when the city shut down, like, they weren't even able to get in, you know, to the library to go to the bathroom, or the bus station to go to the bathroom, or they, like, our soup kitchen shut down and we're serving out of that, so they couldn't get into those spaces, the shelters distanced. And so what we did was we went to them. So we did outreach twice a week into encampments, wherever people were at, and just made sure that they had supplies and food, and even had a system for if they were sick, that they would let us know so that we could get them tested or get them to wherever they needed to be. So, and we did that for, goodness, pretty much up until probably June or July. It was very, very hot walking around in 95 in clubs. And then it shifted a little bit where our partners kind of took over that outreach, because we still did it once a week, but we were working in our hotel as well. So we were doing multiple things. So at that point, we dropped off to once a week out in the encampments. And then in May, the city came to us, and Becky was part of that, Gligo was part of that conversation. And they said, hey, the city is the shelters are having to distance. People are displaced. We have people that are sick that need a place to isolate. And so we ended up taking on a hotel. They asked us if we would. We never had ran a shelter before. This was another instance of us being willing to say yes. And so we jumped into this. We have been doing work, which has been really helpful in laying the groundwork for how would we want to do community with our friends. And we know how we treat people. We know what our expectations for dignity and giving our best first, and all these core values that we've held for almost 8 years now. But we had been working with Community First Village in Austin, Texas, which is a tiny home community, and also Eden Village in Springfield, Missouri, and looking for the past 2 years and learning from them at like what's successful and what's working and what's not. And so that was really helpful in stepping into this to know, like, hey, this is what we want. So our hotel is a little bit specific. So it serves people who needed to isolate or need to isolate from COVID-19, that are homeless or that have an increased risk due to age or comorbidities or hospitalization. Then we also do some families. We do serve domestic violence survivors, and also we've had some situations where our LGBTQ, I just totally said it wrong, LGBT, I am not even going to say it right. You know what I mean. That community in the shelters has been unsafe with some transgender folks and some different things like that. And so this has been a really great, safe place for them to come. And we have loved all of our community. They're just so great. And so that's who we serve out of our hotel. We opened in May, and it was supposed to be 3 months, and then it was 4 months, and then it was 6 months, as you all know, as your timeline has went on with COVID as well. And then now we are supposed to be here through June, and our close date is July, unless more funds come through, and then we'll adjust for that. So open this hotel. It has been amazing. Our funds in the beginning were helped through some ESG funds, but also St. John's Family Foundation came in, didn't know who we were, and totally walked into just working with us and trusting us that we would be able to pull off this amazing, amazing program. We'll be forever thankful to them and for the work that they did to partner alongside us. The city put in, we needed a big brother because we'd never ran a program like this. And so Youth Services of Tulsa came in as kind of our big brother and helped us kind of work through some of those like really reporting things, because we had never had to report to anybody in that way. And then Zero Family Foundation came through and has helped as well. And so on top of that, since that, I think 4-month mark, CARES Act funds came in, and that's been supporting us, as well as like our volunteers and our donors, and just so many people in so many different ways. Obviously we have to have the financial to be able to run this place, but just the little things that people do for our guests that are so individualized and so intentional have been really what has made this a community and not a shelter. Because when you walk in, it is definitely a community, and you feel the difference immediately. So we have, I'm trying to think what else I would say. So as people come in here, they're able, we provide them 3 meals a day. We provide them everything that they need. What I wanted to do when we were writing that budget is it was really important to me that we didn't overstress systems that were overstressed already. And so we looked at partnering and wrote into our budget money to partner with local restaurants to be able to provide our meals. And so that's been super cool. So our guests, they eat fantastic food all the time. McNally's works with us, Take Two works with us, Andolini's works with us, Trails and Barbecue in Owasso works with us. So many different restaurants, Bill and Ruth's, Ruby Tuesdays, which is behind us, Cracker Barrel, which is beside us. In those places, it's been really neat because some of our guests end up being employees of theirs, which we've helped, that process so that we can house them. And then also like even Ruby Tuesdays, they've been so great. We were able to pay for our guests to go over and have a restaurant experience over there at somewhere nice where they could choose off the menu and things like that. So it's really, really important to us that we are building a community that is full of dignity and choice. And that starts from the minute that they come into our hotel. When we do their intake, we have quilts, brand new quilts that we have purchased. And instead of like leasing or renting the quilts off the beds of the hotel that was functioning here, and we took those away, bought brand new blankets, and they get to pick their blanket. They get to pick what their favorite color is. And then that's their blanket, even when they leave, when they move into housing, it's still theirs. And so really just like allowing choice from the get-go, it changes their experience with the shelter. And I love our residents. They're most definitely the best people. We have so much fun together. So like I said, it is a community. That's our friend Gerald. We allow pets. We are low barrier. We're the first low barrier shelter in Tulsa, where it doesn't matter who you say your partner is. It doesn't matter what sex you are. It doesn't matter if you have a pet. It doesn't matter if your pet is registered. You don't have to be clean and sober to come in. We work with you once you settle to connect with 12 and 12 or NAAA, whatever services you might need. And so it's a super low barrier. There's no curfew. Our people can come and go as they please. We just have them sign out so we know in case of a fire, which is really cool. And we've literally had no problems. I mean, everybody has like little things that pop up, but we don't have the crime. We don't have the stealing or the fighting or any of that. We just don't have that here. So, and then the snow came, of course, and our friends were out having fun in the snow. So they're so much fun. And then when our neighbors find safety and get their basic needs met, they begin to settle. And then we're able to start focusing on what moving forward looks like for them. They're able to set goals and things like that. And really, truly, we see them go from like surviving to thriving and being able to participate in their care and in their plan. So we set goals, we reestablish identification. A lot of them have had their identification stolen from them, and you can't get into housing without any of that. Connect them to supports, whether it's SNAP benefits or whatever they need, counseling, therapy, whatever. There's so many different supports that we can connect them to. Provide appropriate medical referrals and make sure they get to their appointments. Some of our friends are coming from hospitals. They've been discharged from a hospital for a surgery or whatever. Instead of going to the streets to try to heal, they're able to come here and have dignified healing and people checking on them. And then find secure housing. So that's the goal, right? We want everybody to be able to reintegrate into something that is more permanent for them. And so we work with them on housing. So, and then I think this is, there's so many stigmas around homelessness, but this is what we find to be true, is that they want to be a part. They want to give back to their community. So here, Heather and Pops are helping us hand out dinner at the hotel, and just they're always asking to serve. Our guests here are always finding something to do, whether it's taking out the trash or sweeping the parking lot. I've seen them wash the windows. I'm sure the hotel windows have never been washed by a guest ever, but our guests will take care of it. So, and then really we had a brief time where we were able to go back out to the bridge kind of before it got really bad again. And then we pulled our permit to hold back out to the bridge and serve alongside us. And that was really cool because some of them had like slept under that bridge and been a part of that, that culture. And so it was just really neat. We actually had one of our guests go out. We do Thursday night outreaches right now while Night Light's kind of on hold. And so one of our guests went out on outreach a couple weeks ago with us. And then with all the cold weather, they were a part of that as well. And really being able to tell us where people were that we might not know that they needed to be checked on. So, and then of course, the goal is to go from City Lights Hotel to home. And so this is how we do this. And this is Miss Marilyn, and she was housed yesterday. And she's so sweet. We have been able to house 44 people out of the hotel. So it's been really, really great. And I love it. You can see our guests, because it is a community and everybody is everybody's neighbor. And so they all wanted, they wanted in the picture as well with their friend Marilyn. And so it's a big deal when somebody gets to move out, and we try to make it a really big deal. We never move anybody into an apartment without the things that they need to be successful. So they have a bed and kitchen appliances and things like that. So, and this is what our rooms look like. So they're super dignified. They have a refrigerator, a microwave, a phone, a locking door, which is huge. They don't have to share a room, it's theirs. And they can keep their stuff in there, and they're not afraid anybody's going to come in or steal. And we've sheltered over 200 people since May here. 80 of those were positive for COVID and needed a safe place to isolate and heal so that they didn't die on the street or get other people ill. So this is where they came. And so we've isolated 80. Right now, I'm so excited. It's the first time our COVID hall has been empty. We sent 3 people back after their quarantine or after their isolations. So we have a separate part of the hotel that is just an isolation hall. Those people don't come in and out. We take everything to them and then give them fresh air breaks throughout the day. I am super proud to say that like with our shelter and with the quarantine hall, we've only had 2 people in our general population get COVID since they've been here. So that's really huge. I'm really glad, and they've been really patient with us, telling them to put their mask back on and wash their hands. So we've had 44 people housed. That is over 90 years of homelessness cumulative in those 44 people. So just thinking about that and thinking about all that homelessness includes, that's a whole lot. So, And then we had because COVID wasn't enough this year, we decided to just throw in an Arctic blast in the middle of everything, and it was crazy. So we did 10 days of pretty much 24/7 outreach. We were on call constantly. We stayed here at the hotel and just kind of based out of here. We also had, rolling blackouts here at the hotel. So we were taking care of our guests here, making sure they have what they need, but also being out on the streets. And a different part of that that's just, you don't think about is like, as they're here housed in safety, there's a lot of trauma around the fact that their friends are not. And there's a lot of fear and a lot of worry. And so it was an interesting time, which we are always glad to just sit with our people and talk through things like that, because that's what we do when you're in community with people. So 10 days out doing outreach. We partnered with Housing Solutions and everybody else in Tulsa. I am so proud of our community that serves the homeless, because I have never in almost 8 years seen them rally like they did with this. It was incredible. Working together, working side by side. We helped raise funds for Housing Solutions so that we could put people in hotels. Over 400 people were put in hotels, 15 hotels across Tulsa. And so we just helped raise funds so that could be done. I think we were at capacity, but we still took in, I think, 5 or 6 individuals here at our hotel and worked with them. And so we were just out doing work and checking on people and taking phone calls and then running and checking on people. And then there were not very many people left out by the time everything got really cold. But we were there. This is our little nightlight van. So we do outreach in it every Thursday night, and it's loaded down with sleeping bags and hot chocolate and coffee and usually Arby's sandwiches and everything else that you could think that you might need if you're outdoors. So, but yeah, we were out checking on all the different places. And then, so that's it. That's kind of what we've been doing. This is one of my favorite quotes. I commit to going deep into the pit of human despair and hold the rope for those that will. And I just encourage everybody, like, you are needed wherever you are, whatever you're doing. There's so many things and so many needs here in Tulsa, whether it's fostering or homelessness or whatever it is, that you are needed. And if you're not the one down in the pit, just hold the rope for somebody that is, because we need you. We need your encouragement. We need your support. And so I love this. My minister's son actually drew this picture, and I love it. I use it all the time. He probably doesn't even know how much I use it. And so I just want to encourage you in that you are needed and that you're never too small. And when you're sitting in front of somebody's feet and they say, you're making me feel uncomfortable, there's still something for you to learn in that. And it will be used. So, and then looking forward, what's next for City Lights? So we know we're here till July or through the end of June. And so we're gonna commit to getting everybody in this hotel housed before that time, so we don't put them back out on the streets. We're hoping to start Nightlight back up in April. We're continuing our street outreach and our service over at our River West building. And then really, truly, this experience has opened up the need for permanent supportive housing for our friends that are chronically homeless, that need a community around them. I mean, we truly believe in the power of meaningful relationships to restore that community. And for some of our people, the places that we move them into, they aren't surrounded in the ways that they need to be successful. And so we've been looking at tiny home communities for 2 years, almost 3 now. And so I think that's what we're looking at. Like, how do we provide that here in Tulsa, where people can have permanent supportive housing that is wrapped in community and all the services they need to be successful. Because the truth is all of our people can't integrate back into society like you or I, or like what we would hope for them to do. Some of them need extra support. And so that's what we're looking at. How can we do that? How can we be part of that vision for permanent housing for our friends on the streets? And so that's it. I think that's what I've got.
That is so awesome. If you want to stop sharing, we can see everyone's beautiful faces. So there is a lot of interest in the hotel. So easy question, where is it? Less easy question, how long is the average stay? And least easy question, what would we need to do to make it permanent?
Yes. Okay, so it is located over in the 31st and Memorial area, and it is about 66 beds, just throwing that out there, which is a good amount for community. So not too big so that it's overwhelming. We know all of our people here and their stories. And so the average stay depends. So part of it is on their settling period. People have to settle to be ready to start looking forward. And sometimes people come in with a lot of trauma from the streets and a lot of mental illness and whatever is going on with them. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer to settle. But I mean, we've housed people as fast as like 3 weeks if they have all their documents and everything that they need. And there are some that have been here for, 7 months. If they don't have their documents, especially right now with COVID, it's extremely difficult to get a Social Security card. I've actually started calling in some of my political friends to how do we get this office to open back up in Tulsa, because it's so difficult. If they start with nothing, if everything's been stolen, we've got to order a birth certificate before we can get an ID. And then once we get the ID, we have to send it actually in, like the physical copy, to get Social Security card. And you can't house without the Social Security card. So it's a whole process. So it really depends on the individual, how fast we can get them into housing. Last question was, how do we make it permanent, correct?
So LaDonna is wanting to organize us to buy the hotel. Love it. But what's actually needed to make it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's funding is huge. Funding is huge. So, and we're absolutely open to that as part of our vision. Having, the hotel, having a village, whatever, we just know our people need to be surrounded in community, and this type of community works. We've seen it work over and over again here. And so funding is the huge thing. How do we get people behind that? There's a lot of different ways. I think just from seeing the way that it impacts our community and helps our community, even on the medical side, since that's my background, we have one individual here that was waiting for disability, and it takes a long time, was on the streets, had 12 hospital visits within 2 months, admit dates. They called, they said, hey, we've got this guy, he's not making it on the streets, the shelters can't take him because of their distancing, whatever, he's not gonna make it, can you take him? We took him. So he's been here since September, and in that time, he's had 1 trip to the ER. He went from 12 to 1 just by having a stable, clean environment that was healthy to be in, and he could get access to what he needed to be healthy. And so he just got his disability this week too. It's been a great week. And so we're looking for an apartment for him now. But that's all he needed. He just needed somewhere stable while all this other stuff went through. And so there's a huge advantage to having the hotel. And I really would love to see funders get behind making it a permanent part of the way that we care for people that are experiencing homelessness in Tulsa.
Beautiful. And then your West Tulsa Outreach Center, where is that located? I'm not familiar. And is that a permanent part of what you hope to continue to do?
So it's over off of 23rd Street and Southwest Boulevard, over by that Quick Trip in the McDonald's, right across from Eugene Field Elementary. So we've worked with the elementary a lot there. We love that community. And it is, we'll see. I don't know if it's temporary. We've been there for about 5 years. So we don't own the building, we do rent it. But we definitely want to be where we're needed. And so right now that's where we still are. We staged Nightlight out of that building and just office out of it. Right now I'm officing out of here, but we still have people over accepting donations and things like that over there and serving that community because they still have a lot of needs.
Great. Cheryl Stepp is on their phone. She did a presentation for us some months ago about ACEs, and she made a really interesting observation about how trauma-informed your program is. Cheryl, do you want to unmute and maybe talk to the group about how what Night Light Tulsa is doing is so trauma-informed?
Yeah, thank you. It just blew me away. In fact, I'm writing in the chat right now that I would just love to have your contact information and have you speak to the self-healing communities that the Potts Family Foundation works with, that I work with so closely across the state. SAMHSA's, you may not know this, SAMHSA's trauma-informed principles, they have them broken into 6 now, but I always think of the first 5 because I think if you truly adhere to those, you adhere to their the way they've broken them into 6. But it's safety. You have to create safety first, emotional and physical safety, and you've done that. And that story is absolutely beautiful about washing feet. You develop trust, and you've given choice and voice. You've created a collaboration, and then you've empowered them. And just the beauty that they are willing to do work within your community. So without, I don't know if you know any of this, but without doing it, you have embodied everything that is the true meaning of being trauma informed, because you've taken these people and you don't even call them, I love it, you call them guests, and given them such respect, and that's all they need in order to thrive. And that you say you've taken them from surviving to thriving is so very true. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful program. But man, if you're willing to share it, I have 22 communities across Oklahoma, and hopefully those will be growing soon. And it would be great, just a beautiful model to follow. So thank you.
I'll connect the 2 of you by email.
Thank you for those kind comments. I feel like we're learning by trial. We just try to treat people how we want to be treated, you know. So thank you so much.
So beautiful. So one other thing I noticed that talking about guests, I noticed you call people friends. The other thing I really noticed a trend across all sorts of service areas is what I've been informed is called people first language. It's not the homeless, it's people experiencing homelessness. It's not disabled, it's people with disabilities or people who use wheelchairs or people with blindness, or there's this real move to use people first language. Is that something you consciously did, or is that something that you fell into, and what's the importance of that?
Yeah, we consciously did that when we were setting culture, almost 8 years ago. When we first went to start Night Light, we reached out to a lot of people who are now our partners, and I was really set off by the language used. And we were told, like, you're girls, we don't, we've got it under control, we don't, whatever. And so really just stepping back from that experience, it was like, this is somebody's somebody. And how would I want my children spoke about, or my sister, or my mom? And so it really was a conscious decision. And I don't think we didn't know anything back then. Like I say, like, it's probably a blessing we didn't, because we probably would have been too afraid to step in and say yes. But I think, like, we didn't have any idea of the impact, but our volunteers speak in that same language now. And it's really, really impactful when you're side by side with somebody, instead of, thinking that you're there to fix everything and save them, and that you have all the answers. I learn from our guest all the time. And so it was a conscious decision, and it's been really exciting because we've been able to watch that people first language, like, develop in Tulsa over the past several years. And I'm really excited for where our partners are at now and where the collaboration is. And we just have a really good group of folks leading the way for how we work with people that are experiencing homelessness here.
Well, I am really touched by the story that you've shared today. All things are possible in community, and I think that's a wonderful lesson for us to take away today. Mike Workman helpfully put your website and your Facebook page in the chat thread. If anyone needs to be connected with Sarah personally, I'm happy to connect you via email. I'm wendy@leadershiptulsa.org. And Sarah, thank you for sharing your time and your story with us today. It's very, very meaningful. So
thank you guys. I appreciate all of you allowing me to share it. So thank you.
So, and next week we'll make a complete change of topic, and we're going to be talking about 36 Degrees North and the efforts to create entrepreneurism in Tulsa, which is also super important, with Devin Haney, who is the new executive director there. So see you all next week, and thank you for being here. Have a great weekend.
you.